Okay, so every Analog Obsession plugin, pretty much, I think, if I've missed any out, let me know in the comments box below. But these are all the ones that I've installed and used, and quite a lot of them I've reviewed as well. Okay, so we've got 5 categories from the top. Analog Perfection for the best, mildly obsessed for second from top, warmish for those okay, sometimes useful plugins, analog depressed for those not so great, and uninstall for those absolute howlers. Okay, let's kick things off. I'm going to do them in alphabetical order, and the first one is just here, and it's Ahead. Ahead is a guitar amp sim. It says here with multiple flavors. Across the net, a lot of people say you can get gritty tones with it, but it's a bit basic compared to amp sims. That's absolutely what I experienced. Don't expect too much from this kind of amp simmy plugin. It's all right doing like there's kind of novelty, kind of trashy grit fuzz tones. That's about it. So it certainly doesn't compare in no way to any paid amp sims. So I'm going to kick things off and be a little bit generous, I think, and put it in the analog depressed. Can't say I've ever used it other than when I reviewed it, but if you were looking for a kind of lo-fi grit fuzz tone, maybe it'd be useful. Okay, let's move on to Amper, which I've got just here. High gain tube amp emulation. I think kind of like a Soldano kind of amp sim. Says here, users like the aggression but feel it lacks depth and realism. Absolutely, that was my experience as well. Didn't really like Amper at all. In fact, I really didn't like it. So I'm not a huge fan of the Analog Obsession guitar stuff. As we go through the list, we'll see if there are any which kind of I remember being better than these two. This one's going straight in the uninstall. Things are going to get a bit better now as we move on to Atone, which looks great, certainly compared to those last two plugins. The Atone channel strip with EQ and vintage compressor flavor. Online, people are talking about its tone shaping, but some say it's a bit too CPU heavy, which I certainly found was the case, and some citing that it's not super clean. I remember this thing having a nice character to it. I think that the interface looks absolutely great, really nice to use. You've got 4 laid out very easy bands there. A reminder that this is free as well. I'm going to put this one Atone up into the mostly obsessed, and let's move on with Attractor. Let's bring it up for you. Here it is. Attractor, dynamic processor that splits attack and release for refined transient shaping. Generally helpful and creative on drums and for vocals too. That attack and release split is really interesting, although I've got to be honest, since I reviewed it, I don't think I've ever used it. I'm going to stick it in the warmish. And let's move on with Black Show, another one of these guitar style plugins. High gain amp sim. This one inspired by Mesotones. Yeah, I mean, again, this was just very generic compared to other amp sims. And it looks a bit basic. It's another one of those which I just haven't touched when I've gone near it. Sorry, Analog Obsession. I'm going to stick this one in the uninstall as well. And as this is alphabetical, we're going to move on with Black Vibe, which is kind of more of the same. This one's got more of a vintage tube amp, and it's got tremolo as well, vibrato. Yeah, you know, it's got a bit of a character. It's very niche, not very versatile. And with a larger amp sim, you're going to have all of these under one hood, and they're going to sound better. With these Analog Obsession ones, you're just going to have loads of different plugins and probably not be able to get the sound you're after. Sorry, Black Vibe. I'm going to put it in the bottom column as well, bottom row. Moving on to Blend EQ. Things are getting a bit brighter with Blend EQ. I remember really enjoying this when I reviewed it. It's dual circuit analog style EQ, frequently described as musical and intuitive. I found this great for like gentle tone shaping. It's a really nice EQ to use, and with a lot of these Analog Obsession EQs, you're going to find one you like and probably just stick with that one for your workflow. So blend EQ, definitely usable. Try it out. I'm going to stick it in the warmish. Moving on to Brit Channel, the first of the Neve inspired plugins from Analog Obsession in our list. This one, a channel strip with preamp, EQ and filters. It's warm and punchy. I think it's right up there with some of Analog Obsession's best plugins. There's one or two other plugins that I probably reach ahead of this from Analog Obsession, but this is absolutely worth checking out. Let's put it in Mostly Obsessed. And move on to Brit Pre, just here. Neve style preamp emulator. It's got subtle color and warmth. I liked it on vocals and drums and was trying it out. Obviously, it's pretty limited. It's a pre with not too many options, but well worth checking out and downloading. Let's put that in the warmish and move on with Brit Presser. Brit Presser, a nice looking plugin, this one. Definitely scores high on the visuals. It's a vintage Neve style compressor, smooth, musical. Some people online cited that they found it a bit limited. Although I've got to remind you, these plugins are free, and this is pretty awesome. I'm going to put the Brit Presser right up in Mostly Obsessed. Move on to Buster SE, a plugin which I've used in my courses and I've also used on a number of videos as well. It's an SSL style bus compressor. This one is super popular online. Punch, glue, great on the mix bus. I think sounds every bit as good as a lot of paid for mix bus plugins. I still use it, even though I don't put so much on the mix bus these days. If I do want a compressor on the mix bus, this is still the one I'd reach for. I think one of the very best from Analog Obsession, and I urge you to try it out if you haven't already. And that's the first one that's going to head up to Analog Perfection. And moving on to the mighty Neve, Neve style channel strip with a preamp, EQ and filters. Pre-de-esser, you got tape, which is really unusual for a free plugin. It's really hard to find any tape emulation for free. Decent EQ, you got compressor, limiter. The workflow on this thing is great. You can go a really long way in the mix. It's very popular on any channel strip free polls, as you would imagine online. It's just a bit of a masterpiece. I think when I reviewed it, I was just like bowled away that this thing's being offered for free. So the mighty Neve has to go into Analog Perfection. Moving on, and we've got Chopper. Here it is, Chopper. Console saturation color plugin. I reviewed this, can't remember too much about it. Adds analog grit and character without heavy processing. I'm kind of having to go online with the online verdict on this one. And I'm going to put it in warmish. Try this one out. Let me know in the reviews below what you make of Chopper. Moving on to Sight, which is a high frequency processor. It does the job, but I just can't imagine bringing a plugin like this onto the mix. It just seems like it's all just a bit fiddly. I guess if you wanted to boost the mid or the high end, and I don't know, you're looking for maybe a different flavor, this might be something you reach for, but I just think it's a little bit pointless. I'm going to stick that in Analog Depressed. Moving on to Compa, versatile compressor which combines VCA, FET and Opto styles. Online it's praised for being flexible, punchy dynamics. It's not one I've reviewed, but it looks really cool. I love the appearance of it. And as I say, it gets good rankings online. I think we've got to put this one pretty high up. Let's stick it in Mostly Obsessed. Moving on, DB Comp. Checked this out a long time ago. I remember really liking this on drums. As you would imagine, DBX style VCA compressor, online, clean and punchy, and from a lot of reviews online. Great on drums. Does the business, doesn't look free. Really cool plugin. Let's put that up in Mostly Obsessed. Next, we've got Distox. It's a distortion and saturation plugin. Yeah, I mean, it's maybe kind of fun if you're looking again for some color in a different way, a lot like some of the guitar plugins from Analog Obsession, but it's kind of got that kind of cheap grit feel about it again. I wasn't too keen, and neither are people online too much. So I'm going to stick that in Analog Depressed, and we're going to move on to Dr. Gate. Just here, Dr. Gate, Noise Gate Dynamic Control plugin. You know, it's handy for cleaning up tracks, but you know, what can I say? It's a gate. I'm not sure how excited I can get about a gate, and how much better is it than your stock gate. If you haven't got a gate, maybe give it a try. Let's put it in warmish. Moving on to Ed Comp compressor with, well, simple controls. It doesn't get any simpler than this. I mean, if you want some really super quick leveling, then this might be something you want to check out. But I can't imagine it's going to excite you too much when you're mixing. And again, like some of those real simple EQs or pre's, it's just a little bit sort of kind of unnecessary, really. Let's stick it in the warmish. And move on with FET CB, FET style compressor emulating apparently the Calrec CB9146. Honestly, guys, not a Scooby-Doo about that one. Known for fast attack and outgoing punch. Apparently it's a community favorite. I don't remember ever trying it. I'm going to have to check this one out. It looks great, and I'm going to have to just go off the reviews online for that. I'm going to stick it up in Mostly Obsessed. And move on to FET Drive. Just here, I think these are all available like in a pack. This is a line amp driver, tone and mix controls. It's warm, it's fat, really useful for tone shaping. I like this one, and I use it a fair amount. I'm going to stick it in Mostly Obsessed. And move on to a big hitter, FET-ish. This is your FET compressor limiter. Some online call it subtle and musical. Others find it a bit limited, but you know, can't knock it because it's free. If you don't have an 1176 in your plugins list, then this is absolutely worth grabbing. And it's you can't go wrong with the attack of the release knobs because he's labeled them fast and slow. I think it's a bit of a classic. Also based on a few people online, kind of maybe feeling it's a bit limited. I'm going to stick it in the Mostly Obsessed. And move on to FET Snap. So FET Snap based transient enhancer and compressor. Overall, the vibe online is they like its control over sustain and punch on transient material. This isn't one I've used too much. Part again of this FET series. I'm going to stick it in the warmish. Move on. Fiverr. Great EQ, this one. Really like this when I reviewed it. 5-band analog EQ. Reviewers like its flexibility and musical curves. I really enjoyed this one when I reviewed it and got really used to this EQ. I used it on quite a lot of mixes. And again, I think with a lot of these EQs from Analog Obsession, once you get used to kind of one, it might just become your go-to. Fiverr's a super cool EQ. There's a lot in there. It's a bit of a Swiss Army knife. Let's stick it in Mostly Obsessed. And move on to another cool EQ. Frank. Musical analog EQ, often used for broad mix shaping. That's what it says online, and easy to dial in. What it doesn't mention here is, as I remember, the concept is 5 different EQ bands from 5 different sort of famous EQs, which are mostly reflected, I think, in the knob styles. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds of 5 different EQs. I think it was a great, or is a great idea. And the whole reason why we've got plugins is to play around with stuff like this. Just because we can emulate it, I think it's also fun that we can get the best out of the hardware. It kind of makes the whole point of software that we can be flexible and come up with new and fresh ideas. That's what Frank is all about. And I think for that, it's super cool. Now, I would put it in analog perfection, but for Frank CS, which I used in my course, Channel Strip 101, so I'm very familiar with this. Now, whilst it doesn't look as nice, yeah, it's a bit grey. But you've got the bands here. This time you don't have the different knobs, but I think still the same principle behind them sonically, but you also have a compressor in here as well. So it just makes everything a little bit more flexible, and you've got high pass and low pass filters. And I think for free, this is a great channel strip. In that course, I took a mix really quite a long way just using this channel strip. And for that, I'm going to stick that in Analog Perfection as one of the better channel strips you can get for free online. Moving on to the catchy G395. Sounds like it's come out of like a robot from Star Wars or something. I don't have much knowledge of the hardware. I did research it when I did the video, but what I remember from doing the video is that I really liked the sound of the presence boost. So it's a discrete Class A style EQ. Solid classic sound, say online, although not been heavily hyped. It's simple and straightforward, but I remember liking the sound of it quite a lot, and it found itself on a few mixes. I'm going to stick that on Warmish, well worth checking out. So we move on to Graph Hack, another one I remember reviewing, a graphic style EQ with analog flavor. It says here, interesting though not widely adopted, and that's probably well summed up really. It's good, but it's fiddly, and one which I've just never come back to. This is just like it's not just not a way I would work. It's sort of it sits somewhere in between your stock EQ and kind of your colourful broader EQ, in that one which you just probably wouldn't ever use. I think if I used it too much, I would become a bit analog depressed. Let's move on to Hercules. Harrison-inspired channel or EQ variant. Adds classic console vibe. Apparently a small user base, but respected, say, online. This is one I haven't used. It looks cool. I think I'm going to check it out this year and drop a review. So I'm going to stick it in the middle in Warmish. If you've used that one, let me know in the comments box below. In fact, there's anything that you could add to any of these plugins or any of my choices that you think, no, you stuck that in the wrong box, Johnny. Let me know in the comments box below. Let's move on to, talking of catchy names, HLQSE. Helios type style EQ emulation, colourful mid-range presence, a bit niche, but very much appreciated. I do find some, because I'm such a visual person, sometimes when the EQs are just kind of completely blacked out like this, actually it looks really similar to my art preamp down here. And I really do like, you know, like on the Marg EQs when they're all different colours. I know it's emulating probably what this Helios looks like, but yeah, that's one thing which even just in the appearance, I'd be a bit like, it's very black. But I can't review it based on that. Haven't used this one. Seems a bit of a 7 out of 10 online, so I'm going to stick it in the Warmish. Use that one again. Let me know in the comments. So we move on to IndieQ. Very like utilitarian based EQ. And yeah, not too much exciting to say about this one. I'm going to put that in again in Warmish. Or should I put it in analog depressed? I'll be generous and leave it in Warmish, even though I can't say I've ever really opened it since I reviewed it. Here's Jamp. Now I do remember checking this out. So another amp related kind of plugin. Trying to remind myself a little bit more about it, but I mean, I can't remember liking this at all, and that's got to be one of those depressing GUIs I've ever seen. Sorry, Jamp, but you're going to go with some of the other guitar stuff down there. Let's move on to cabin. I mean, could be useful alongside your amps. I don't recall liking this too much. I think there's a lot better, even for free, that you could find out there. The simple free impulse response loader would probably be a much better choice. See where I was going with these things, but yeah, sorry, cabin. Let's put you in the uninstall. Sticking with the K's. And we've got Colin with a K. Very Mew compressor. Smooth, musical. I particularly like this plugin on buses. I think it's a bit of a winner. And compared to what we were just looking at there, the guitar amp sim, what a nice looking interface that is. Great job. If you haven't got that one, well worth checking out. Stick it in Mostly Obsessed. And whilst you're downloading that one, I think these come in a pack from Analog Obsession. Also very nice looking Colin MB mid-band variant of the Colin compressor, refined multi-band control and character. I think very well respected online. Looks like a potential bit of a headache, so you might want to spend a bit of time with it. I can't say I've used this one too much, although it does look very cool. And I'm sure once you got into it, this could, based on Colin, be very good indeed. I'm going to put that in the Mostly Obsessed. And move on to console. Console emulation plugin. Users like the subtle color on groups and mix buses. I think I've used this. It looks like a kind of 7 out of 10 plugin, this one. Let's put it in the warmish. And move on to a giant from Analog Obsession. And that is Lala, one of the few, is it the only free LA2A out there? I think maybe, unless it's like something on a special offer. LA2A style optical compressor. It's very popular. It's smooth, warm. I love it. It says it's vocal friendly. I did a shootout of like 5 or 6 LA2A plugins, and the Analog Obsession hovered around the bottom with the UA one coming out on top. But it's free, and if you want to get into using an LA2A, or you just, you haven't got the bucks to drop, or you've missed some of the cool free offerings that have been around over the last year or two, this is absolutely great. And I would happily use this on a mix. It's just a bit of a giant. I'm going to put it right up there with Analog Perfection, simply because the LA2A is my favorite color compressor to use, and it's great that that's available for free. Load S, a plugin that I still use a lot. It's a de-esser. It's very easy to use, and it does the job. A lot of the time, I just grab for this. Sometimes when I'm already use, say, a Waves de-esser, but I want a different de-esser in the chain, I'm using multiple de-essers. This might be the one that I reach for. Sometimes I just reach for this one on its own. I think it's great. I'm going to stick it up in Analog Perfection. Let's move on. And we have Love End, a low-end enhancer and subtool. Reviewers enjoyed it for adding weight and thickness. I was one of those in my video. I really liked this on kick, really liked it on bass. Does a great job of just fattening your bass out. Lots of really nice harmonic saturation. Just a nice simple plug-in to reach for. And despite this one being simple, it's kind of simple in a good way, because that is often a job that you want done simply. If you want to just fatten out that low end. Love End is a beauty. I'm going to whack it up in Mostly Obsessed. Max Bax Utility EQ. I remember liking this one. I'm going to put it in warmish. Moving on to mid-bass. Saturation dynamics tool with punchy effects on mids and presents. Great for adding body. Not many reviews online about this one, and not one from me, because I only just noticed this one when I'm been compiling this list. Although I like the concept of it, I like its simplicity, I'm absolutely going to be checking this out. I'm going to, however, have to put it in the warmish because I know not much more about it. Let's bring up MoMA. Drum shaping plugin, used on drums, has been praised online for quick results. Looks super simple again to use. I love it's described as a passive mojo box. Well worth checking out. Let's put it in warmish. We move on to MPreQ. It's amazing how many of these plugins there are. And you can grab all of these right now and use them on your mixes. Just incredible. Parametric EQ, clean and usable, but not flashy. Definitely not flashy. I did a review of this quite recently, and I really liked it. It's definitely got, I think I used it for like a vintage vibe. I was comparing it with the Kit Plugins Norman Petty Ultec pre. And I was trying to find a similar kind of vintage pre that I had, and I was using this by comparison. And this gets you quite a lot of the way there, considering it's free. It's definitely got that vintage vibe. I think it's very cool. I'm going to put it up in mostly obsessed. And we move on to Myth Pre. Another one I don't recall seeing. It's an amplitude-dependent preamp emulator known for dynamic harmonic response and character. I can't really comment too much on it. It looks cool. Let's put it in warmish. And onto another catchy title, the N492 ME Neumann Mastering EQ Emulation for Smooth Broad Tone Shaping and Master Channel Tweaks. I'm going to stack it in warmish. Okay, the OAQ. Let's open it up. It's a Motown-inspired EQ with a vintage mojo for creative analog flavor. Yeah, a bit niche, but this kind of could be fun. So you've got the fixed button bands here, and you've got a drive knob here. This is one that I should probably check out, but I do think in terms of workflow, it just seems a little bit fiddly. If you're after that kind of mojo vibe and you don't want to drop some money on something like, I think Kit Plugins do a really cool Motown EQ, then check out OAQ. Let's put it in warmish, if that's your thing. OSS. Tube leveling compressor. I really like this one. It is praised highly for glue. Parallel compression. It's a great one for mix warp. It's got a really nice color to it. It looks nice. Great job, Analog Obsession. It's got to go in the mostly obsessed. This is looking pretty good on Analog Obsession. There's a lot of 7, 8, 9 out of 10 plugins here. Again, like these are free. Oh, hang on. Here comes pedals. This possibly might be my least favorite plugin from Analog Obsession. It says here, multi-effects pedal, fun and creative, but not essential. I'd probably go a few steps lower than that, in that it doesn't sound like any of these pedals, and it looks horrible. And yeah, let's put it uninstall. And we're going to go from uninstall to complete flip side. If you don't have a Pultec EQ, check out Portec. It's a Pultec style EQ with Fairchild style line amp. Users like its classic low-end trick and simplicity, which you can do by boosting the low frequency, the same amount of boost and the same amount of attenuation, just to get you some low-end punch. You can do that with Portec. Very cool. Sounds great, that plugin. I'm going to put it in mostly obsessed. Why? Because there's one other Pultec style EQ still to come, which I would reach for ahead of it. Onto Prebox, saturation and color box. A lot of people mention this as one of the best Analog Obsession plugins. I enjoyed this very much when I reviewed it. It's got a really nice, warm analog sound about it. If you're looking for some character in your mixes, this is definitely one to have up your sleeve. I really like the wooden box that it's in as well. Let's move on to the red console preamp emulation. Again, vintage character and color. If you're after that red sound and you don't have a number of them from Waves, then this may well do the job. There's plenty of color in this one. This one can get pretty fun. I'm going to put it up in Mostly Obsessed. Have a slug of coffee and marvel and move on to Rare. So the Pultec emulation from Analog Obsession, Pultec Style EQ, recommended for the mix bus, mastering warmth. Does a whole bunch of stuff that you may well want the Pultec to do. Sounds great. You can do the Pultec trick. Yeah, I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't grab that. It has to go in analog perfection for simply being a really good Pultec emulation that doesn't cost you a penny. Realizer. Oh. Utility plugin. Very limited discussion online. I remember looking at it and then thinking, I don't think I'm going to review this one. Still don't completely understand it. Let me know in the comments box below. But just on the visuals alone, that's one that I would put back in the box. Let's open up Relife. All I've got here is its rarely mentioned niche use. I think this was basically for breathing life into sort of bland sounds. But I think there's definitely plugins that I would rather use. Well, I feel a bit harsh putting it in analog depressed because I haven't fully tried it. But let me know if I've made a bad decision on that one. Room 041 says here it's a room ambience tool. It's a reverb plugin. The general vibe online is decent for subtle space, but not a core reverb. I would kind of agree with that. It's got this preamp section here as well, so you can drive the reverb. It's all right, but wouldn't be my go-to reverb. And since I reviewed it, can't say I've used it that much. I'm going to put it in analog depressed because I think you might as well just use your stock reverb. SSQ. Great plugin, this one. SSL style EQ. Widely liked for punchy, clean EQ moves. A lot easier to use than the rather fiddly SSL plugins from Waves. This is just the EQ, but it's great. Super easy to use. This could easily be your go-to EQ. Very cool. Let's put it in the Mostly Obsessed. Starting a new column. STEQ. Remember reviewing this and I really liked it. Classic EQ plugin, all-purpose EQ. It's praised for its straightforward tone control. That's what I liked about it. It's really simple, super musical to use. I remember this compressor being really cool, really easy. You can just see the gain reduction here. I mean, again, you could use this as a really nice shaping EQ. Actually really like that one. I'm going to put it in Mostly Obsessed. We move on to Sweet Drums. Drum enhancement plug in, helpful and easy to use. Helpful. It's a solid drum helper, says my online notes. I liked it when I reviewed it. Couldn't be much easier, really. Dial in the process. Does it sound better or worse? Good simple plug-in to put on your drum bus. On to Tilter, a tilt EQ. It's very simple stuff. EQ with a tilt. If that's what you want, then that's what it'll do. I'll stick it in the warmish. Moving on to tracks, the Transient Shaper from Analog Obsession. It's useful on stuff like percussion, useful on drums. It's a free transient shaper, super easy to use, and it works well. Not much to not like. Let's stick it in warmish and move on to tuba. I like this one. Tuba bass enhancement plugin, adds low weight. Users like it on bass, so do I. And I like the saturation on this. I think I also used it for a vocal effect on a mix as well a while back, and I liked it on that too. I like how you can boost the low frequency and the high frequency, although I wish there were a few more notches in between because it can get quite extreme quite quickly. But yeah, it sounds good. Saturation sounds really nice on that. We go to Tube Preamp emulator, smooth, subtle saturation. That's about it. I think I've used it, but I can't remember. Looks like a 7 out of 10 plugin online, so I'm going to stick it in the warmish. Check it out. Let me know in the comments box below. Same goes for any of these plugins. Please do chip in and let me know your thoughts as we come close to the end of the list. With the Yuri styled EQ, clean, punchy, often praised online. It's not a plugin I have used, this one. So let me know if you've used it down below. Looks like it's a popular one online. And for that reason, I'm going to put it in the mostly obsessed. As we move on to the last couple of plugins and a couple of absolute belters for us to finish off with. Verymoon, the Verymoon compressor. Loved for mastering and rich color, that Fairchild vibe with this one. I remember finding it a little bit, for some reason, a little bit confusing to use. But once I got my head around it, it sounded great. So one to kind of check the manual on, but it had a great sound to it. I loved it when I reviewed it, so I'm putting it in analog perfection. That leaves me with one more. And that's the absolutely excellent Yala analog tube compressor with smooth musical compression and warmth. Another absolute must download, I think, from Analog Obsession. A bit of a free classic. It's analog perfection. And there you go. There's my list of Analog Obsession plugins. All of these available for free, all ranked. Let me know in the comments box below, what do you agree with? Do you disagree with? Any of these plugins which I haven't checked out and I'm relying on online reviews. Have you used them? Let me know in the comments box below. I want to hear from you. So I hope you enjoyed this video, my friend. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And most importantly, go and have yourself a great day.